Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty show, and today's episode giving you a little Thursday night primer of the Detroit Green Bay. We're going to talk some injuries and some start-sit decisions for y'all out there. So please don't be afraid. Submit your start-sit questions to us. Let us go over it, try and help you out in this big week 14 coming up. I know many of you need a win to get in this week, or you're trying to maneuver your positioning, maybe get a bye so you don't have to take on somebody next week and you can move on to week 16 without any trouble. But we've got Matt English in the house. How we doing today, Matt?
Doing pretty good, man. Feeling good. Ready to talk some football.
Hey, who doesn't want to? So tonight's game, we've got Detroit hosting the Packers. Packers coming in at 9-3. Lions still only have that one loss on the season. Somehow Baker went into Detroit in week 2 and pulled it out. But that was a long time ago. We've had a lot of things happen since then. But one thing that hasn't happened is a Detroit loss. So where are we at with the Lions? And we know we've got a ton of injuries for the Lions. Fortunately, not many injuries to their key players other than the Hutchinson injury a few weeks ago, of course. But they've got a ton of injuries. The Packers have a few injuries. It's an NFL season. That's what happens. But tonight's matchup, I think the Lions are favored by 3.5. There's a high over-under, of course, for these two squads. What do we have to expect, first of all, just from a game perspective, and then maybe a little fantasy perspective as well, Matt? What are your thoughts right now?
Yeah, man, this is a massive game with a lot of playoff implications here. Okay, so, I mean, I know they're separated by 2 games here, but this cuts it down to one wholly. And gives Green Bay an opportunity to kind of creep into winning the division conversation, which to start the year, no one really would have thought possible. But Green Bay's been hot. They've been playing very well, despite any sort of little mistakes that they make along the way. They're not making a lot there, but the mistakes they make are not costing them wins. And they're playing well. Even with some of the injuries they've had to their wide receivers throughout the season, Jordan Love's done a great job of not being dependent on one guy, and he moves the ball around. And then Josh Jacobs has been balling, right? I know his fantasy owners are happy, but he's been doing what he was brought there to do. So Green Bay's been kicking, but then you've got Detroit, who just continues to find ways to win. Either they're just going to blow you out of the freaking water, or they'll just grind out a win. I won't even get started on the Thanksgiving Day game, but oh my God, that game, I'm anybody who's ever played sports at a decent level understands that's not how sports work. There's a lot more things at play in that game. Detroit absolutely owned Chicago in the first half, and that's what I expect to see from Detroit tonight, is that type of mentality. Just well prepared, firing on all cylinders. It's going to be a fun game, and it means a lot. So some of these little decisions they make along the way, who gets the ball, when and where, are going to be a big deal, and that's going to implicate fantasy as well in big situations, because there's some big players on the stage tonight.
Oh, absolutely. Huge fantasy implications for us out there. When you're talking the Lions versus the Packers, I don't think that the home field really matters. Okay, these teams see each other twice a season.
But
They're
the
both
weather
used
might.
to each other's. Yes. What's that?
The weather might.
Yeah, the weather might come into play in the
Dome
dome.
team, outdoors.
No, it's at Detroit, Matt. It's at Detroit.
Still applies to the Packers. They might not just be used to playing in such a comfortable environment.
No, now that is important, because if you look at the team builds, right, the Packers have more of a wide open offense versus Detroit's ground and pound style. Now, I know that the Packers have been successful pounding it with Jacobs most of the season, but if you remember last year's game on Thanksgiving, the Packers went in there and this was part of their run that they made to get into the playoffs. And it was because of this game that sort of propelled them into the level. It gave them a huge boost of confidence, we'll put it that way. They went in and they slung it around and destroyed Detroit on Thanksgiving last year. And it was a huge surprise to everyone, really. And that's what you get with Jordan Love, because sometimes, he makes some bad plays. He had a few bad interceptions early in the season, but lately, like you mentioned, it hasn't really cost them. They snuck out of Chicago with a win on that blocked field goal, just part of Chicago's demise over the last month. And, I think they're still going to obviously try and establish Jacobs in the game, but on the other side of the ball, you're going to have Detroit trying to do the same thing. Detroit's got a few injuries there, but the key is that Montgomery, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, and Goff are still there. Laporta's healthy, so they've got their main weapons. JMO is there. It's really just smaller pieces for Detroit that are injured. They've got a lot of guys on IR, but it's just with Dan Campbell, it's the next man up mentality, right? He can fire up. He could get me out there and get me fired up to run down on kickoffs. Okay. So
dude, I'll tell you this, if Dan Campbell called me today, this would never happen. I live in a fantasy world most of the time, but if he called me today,
we know,
and said, Matt, I know you just had knee surgery, but I really need you for this one play, I'd be like, dude, I will come play for you. I would die on that cross. I really wish I was a Detroit fan, because I love Dan Campbell. I love his demeanor. I love the way he coaches. I love his grit. Like the way he was as a player, he's brought into the way that he coaches, and his whole team is so bought in. If Detroit doesn't win the Super Bowl this year, they're so well.
It's going to be sad.
They're the best prepared team in football. They work harder than everyone else. If they don't win, I'm telling you, it's fixed. It was painful last year when they just fell apart in the second half against the Niners in the championship game. Bro.
And I totally agree. If they don't win it this year, I love my Bucks, and I know we were the only team to beat them so far, but I don't think we can beat them in the playoffs. I don't even know if we're going to get to the playoffs. But yes, if Detroit doesn't pull this off this season and win it, it's going to be a hard scene to see Dan Campbell have to walk off the field again.
Yeah,
to lose a game.
I mean, look, Jared Goff, despite what people say about the dude, he continues to just produce. Does he have some bad games? Oh yeah, he has some bad games.
But they still beat your Texans somehow.
He's been deep into the playoffs a couple of times, so he can't be that bad. But then you look at the supporting cast around him. He's got a great 1-2 punch at running back in Monty and Gibbs, and then the receiving core and all of his targets. I mean, my goodness, you've got the absolute highest floor wide receiver one on your team, and then you've got super high ceiling in JMO. And then you've got, pre-draft or, the tight end one in Laporta. And even though it's been kind of a weird year for tight ends, I think he's shown here over the last few games since he sat out that with injury, at the very least, he's touchdown guy. He's going to get some red zone looks. So last week he got 2 touchdowns. So week before that, or 2 weeks prior, he had another one. So, I mean, there's a lot there in Detroit. I'd play all my studs in Detroit tonight, baby.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw Laporta start to pump up his production here the last month of the season going through the playoffs. I mean, that'd be a perfect ending for the way this season has gone at the tight end position. It's just been all over the board. You got Jonnu Smith is what, a top 3 tight end right now essentially. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, hey, you had Taysom Hill in the top 5, basically. I mean, of course, he's out now, but yeah, it's really hard to predict these tight ends. Aside from Kelsey and of course Bowers, the production is just it's coming from everywhere. And then next week they'll get 2 targets. So but over on the Packers side of the ball, you've got a tight end as well there, Tucker Kraft, who's been up and down.
Yep.
Last week he had led the team in targets last week. Still had, I think it was 6 or 7 catches for like 86 yards. So another solid performance from him. It's almost easier when you're looking at it fantasy perspective with Romeo Doubs out. It's better for us because now you have Jaden Reed, who you can start with confidence, I guess, in a deeper league. Yeah. In a deeper league where you have 4 or 5 wide receivers, right? Yeah. You can plug Jaden Reed in there. And then Christian Watson is like the ultimate wild card if you've got him sitting on your bench. This week there's 6 teams on bye this week. So you have limited resources out there. I mean, the waiver wire was pretty thin in most leagues at wide receiver. We were looking at Parker Washington, and then it went down to I don't even know who else. I mean, I picked up Parker Washington in a league or 2, and I'm not head over heels about it.
I mean, look at it. So what's there, right?
Exactly what's there.
No Davis, no Christian Kirk. You need somebody to go over the middle.
Right, and Mac Jones did not look that bad. So and we're going to spin into the injuries next year, but the Jaguars offense, the way their defense has been playing, the Jaguars are going to be slinging it around the whole second half probably, and that leaves Parker Washington one-on-one the whole second half. So I would expect another game with 6 to 8 targets for Parker Washington because they're going to double Brian Thomas if they can. And then Evan Ingram obviously draws a lot of attention as well. So I think another decent game from Parker Washington is not out of the realm of probability at all. So you've got T-Law out. It was a nasty hit. Obviously, I still can't pronounce the guy's name from Houston that did it, but he showed remorse about it. Okay. What was it again?
Aziz Al-Shaair.
There we go. We've got it. Al-Shaair.
Yeah.
So
I own him in every MVP league I have.
Well, as well you should, but now he's going to be out 3 games from the suspension. And
I'll be fine.
I mean, was it warranted?
But I'll be fine.
Was it warranted? I think so. I saw some highlight reel of his hits and some of the sideline hits. It's just tough for defensive players. I mean, I was watching Good Morning Football up there this morning, and they were talking to Manti Te'o and how ridiculous it is for defensive players. He went through like Patrick Mahomes against Carolina, how he danced along the sideline and 2 defensive backs had to hold up because he was right on the edge there. And then he scooted by them for another 30 yards into field goal range and won the game for the Chiefs. So that's the difficulty for defensive players. I hate it personally. I think if you're anywhere on the white, it's okay
tough,
that they
and
get them.
What's crazy? This is still a league that makes money on like big hits, right? It's kind of like this, rules for thee but not for me type thing. Like I'm gonna make money on your big hits, and I'm still gonna do it, right? But like I don't know. It's football, man. Let's not be confused. Right. This is just modern day Coliseum games. That's what it is. So it's exactly the same. People sit in bowl stadiums to watch this, just like Coliseum. People get violent and get hurt. Look, I know we want to protect our investments and everything, but dude, it's football. And like the flags that come out Like, these guys make a ton of money. I don't think that's right. I don't agree with the suspension, because if he wasn't concussed, I don't think there's a suspension. Would he be fined?
Absolutely not.
Would he be fined? Maybe. But there'd be no suspension if there was no injury. I guarantee it. But because there's injury, they're calling it this nasty hit. But I mean, like, I really look at these guys, because you said Robert Griffin started it with that little toe dance along the sideline, acting like I'm going out of bounds, and then dance along it. No one hits me because I'm a quarterback. There's all kinds of stuff. They'll wait to the very last second to slide with their feet first. And if they're touched, man, that flag comes out, and it's just garbage. It's garbage. The defenseless receiver thing is overplayed. If you touch a receiver whose back is turned to you and he doesn't catch the ball, or it's overthrown, they throw the flag. It's so stupid, man. They're so tip-tap, and they miss the actual real calls, like holding every freaking time. Oh, my God. Call real penalties. Real penalties.
Or false starts on the right tackle for the Chiefs.
So many false starts across the league. You can see it. Or how about this? Delay a game. You know how many delay of games don't get called? How many times you see zero and then the ball comes out? Come on.
Yeah.
Let's say.
To your point, Matt, I totally agree. Like, I grew up in the 80s, right? Watching the NFL films.
Even 90s, 80s and 90s.
And they could put a greatest hits video out weekly back then. And, it's not like Alshire hit him with his helmet. He didn't lead with his helmet and smash into Lawrence's helmet. That I could understand a fine and a suspension, but he hit him with his shoulder. And again, they've showed, I've seen still shots of it and all this. What was the guy going to do? He just let him get another 5 to 10 yards?
There's nothing wrong
what would
with
have
the
happened.
technique, and that's what they tend to try to flag, right? Is the aggressive nature of leading with your head, because that's what actually hurts people the most. Both people. Yeah, it's just it's crap. And the fact, I'll tell you this: the fact that he appealed it and they upheld it within 24 hours, that they were never going to change anything. Never. It's not it's not a good look for a violent sport. It's just not.
No, not at
all.
I mean, these are
for blood splattering on people in the front row. Absolutely not. That's what they pay for.
Exactly. Look, this is what you signed up for.
And you're going to get your clock cleaned at some point. If you play football, high injury risk, high, neurological damage risk. That's football.
Absolutely. These are our modern day gladiators. This is what you signed up for back in 4th, 5th, 6th grade Pee-wee football. If you waited till high school to play, it's still what you signed up for. You know that this is going to happen. If you didn't want these injuries to happen, play soccer. I mean, there's other options out there. Yeah. So when you sign up to play this sport, I mean, it's no different than doing the UFC, boxing, all these gladiator type sports.
Yeah.
You can't just go back like the players who now are suing the NFL for their head injuries. Now, granted, could the NFL give these guys more money so that they're better prepared for retirement? Sure. I mean, the NFL has so much money, they don't know what to do with it.
I don't think it's about money. I think it's about money. How about just tell them flat out? Like,
I think it is about money. That's why the rule. That's why all these rule changes have come in. It's about money. The onside kick changes.
I get that part. I'm talking the fix to the problem. Like, you got to know, you play football. You literally wear a helmet on your head to protect it, and know that's not 100%.
Right.
So who's really liable? The NFL can't. I mean, I just don't see how that can be considered liable when you know what you're doing. You've been playing it your whole life.
Right. It'd be like me getting into
maybe you deserve to have like neurological issues. I don't know. It's just I'm just floored by
It's
all
like
of it. It just
suing
doesn't seem right.
it's like suing the car manufacturer for an accident, right? I mean,
Suing
if you're
McDonald's
driving a
because the
vehicle,
cup doesn't
there
stay
is
hot.
certain inherent risks in going out on the road and driving a vehicle every single day, regardless of the fact that, like for me, I've been driving a vehicle over 30 years now, right? I I know how to drive. I haven't been in many accidents. I'm a pretty good driver, right? But there's still other guys out there. So on the road that can create an accident. And that's what happens in football. So I don't know if that's enough
We
about
could
injuries, but
we could keep
we
going
all
on this one. We we clearly ruffled our
exactly.
feathers.
But the fact is that there are injuries, and we have to, in fantasy football, we have to account for that. So you have to have backups, and that leads to start sit decisions that are difficult when you have a player like Isaac Guerrero coming in this week out of nowhere because Christian McCaffrey got hurt and Jordan Mason got hurt. So all those Jordan Mason owners who are celebrating for a minute or two there, well, too bad. So
Yeah.
I actually have a start sit decision for us, Matt. Let's see what you can do. This one's from Brandon, and he wants us to pick 2 to start this week. Now he doesn't list it whether it's PPR or whatever, but we'll assume PPR, full PPR. Tyron Tracy, Breece Hall, or Jaden Reed. Pick 2. So this is obviously his flex spots. He's probably got 2 flex spots.
Right. So
Tyron Tracy, they're
Tracy's
taking on the
playing at home
Saints.
against the Saints. Yeah.
The Jets are taking on the Dolphins, and Jaden Reed is tonight. So that's why he needs this decision tonight. Does he sit Jaden Reed, or
does he play Breece
does he
Hall?
throw Jaden Reed into the lineup?
Yeah.
I think that would be my question here.
I like
Personally,
Tyron Tracy. I like Tyron Tracy.
I would start Tracy for sure. For me, it would be down to Jaden Reed or Breece Hall.
Yep. And what's crazy is I know a lot of people say start your studs here. This is why you draft Breece Hall, but do we really think it's going to be a run-heavy game? Or, I mean, they've shown – here's the thing, though, is the Jets have shown throughout the course of the season and specifically last week that they're going to use all 3 running backs when they throw the football. And that really drains Breece Hall's value. I don't know, man. That's a tough call. Oh, man, that's a tough call. Because if Jaden Reed doesn't get in the end zone tonight, I think that's going to be a bad decision. So, I think he's a little touchdown dependent. But I'm going to go with Breece Hall. I'm just going to say play Breece Hall, play your 2 running backs. This has been the year for running backs to outplay the wide receivers. Wide receivers have been getting hurt and inconsistent. Running backs have, for the most part overall, at least the top 24 of them, have been pretty darn consistent. So I'm going to say stick with the running backs in Tracy and Breece Hall.
Yeah, this is one I agree with you. I would stick with Breece Hall, bench Jaden Reed. Reed is too touchdown dependent. Breece Hall could get home without a touchdown, put it that way. He can get 70, 80 yards, get over 100 yards on the day overall with 4 or 5 catches, and you're good. Jaden Reed, he's got to get into the end zone. If he only ends up with 4 catches for 60 yards, are you going to be shocked?
No.
Tonight? No. If he ends up with 2 catches for 17 yards, I wouldn't be shocked. So that's the problem there. I would stick with Tracy for sure, and then Breece Hall. There you go.
The other thing, too, is what are you looking for here? Are you looking for upside?
Well, yeah.
Do you need home runs? Or do you need to just kind of hold the ship and make sure you stay steady with a good floor? Maybe we're just hitting our projections this week. That's all we need, right?
Yeah, if he's a
if you
a
need
20-point
I'm
underdog,
going Tracy and Reed.
Right. If he's a 20-point underdog in this matchup, then I might lean towards Jaden Reed. Yes.
Yeah,
but if this is an even to he's favored in this matchup, I'm just sticking with Breece Hall. Absolutely. So
Yep.
that's something to think about with your teams. How are your team's roster constructed? A lot of you Bucky Irving owners out there, Bucky's been tearing it up lately, and he's probably your third, fourth, fifth running back. So he probably leads to a lot of tough calls. I can bring up our team in TigsBits. Let's do it. I'll bring it right up right now to show everybody, because that is our dilemma, where we have, let me get to it here, bring it up in a second for everybody.
This has been a team that we've had to fight with all year based on injuries, availability.
Well, we haven't had too many tough decisions at wide receiver, right?
League listens to this show and does everything we say, and then we can't do it. So that's part of it too. But yeah, let's take a look at it here.
So we've got Drake May on bye, so we scooped up Aiden O'Connell as this is a super flex league, start 10, and so you can see down there we've got Jalen Hurts and then Aiden O'Connell at our quarterback. Now running back though, we have Monty tonight, Tracy, and then Bucky Irving as well. And in past weeks, we've had to decide between Jalen Warren and then Nico Collins. Obviously, he's in the lineup. So, like in a normal week, we'd have to decide between Monty, Tracy, and Bucky Irving.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so luckily, Nico Collins is on bye this week. But going into next week, if all these guys are healthy, it's going to be a tough call.
Yeah. So, looking at this, barring any sort of freak injury update here on Bucky, because we know he hurt himself last week. How serious is it? Is it just really a pain management thing? How effective is he going to be this week? I don't think we've been given. Huh?
It's a hip injury that he came back into the game and played with. So, it's one of those things where if he re-injures it, then maybe we sit him. But
yeah, we're kind of, it's kind of a dice roll, but we have till Sunday to make that decision, right? So, and it's not like we're completely out of options. I like him if he's healthy, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, we kind of get the spoils here in that, we do have Drake London, Malik Neighbors, and then we can flex out Puka through this bye week because of a trade we did, 6 weeks ago?
Yeah, who did we give up for Puka?
We gave up, or actually it was a long time ago. We gave up
a running back,
Dobbins, for Puka straight up when Puka was still on IR. We had a surplus of running backs. Neither one of us felt like Dobbins was going to hold all year. And he was hot.
This was back. I think this was back in week 3. Exactly. Yes, that's what I want to say. And Dobbins was on a roll.
Let's do it.
Yep. And now it's paying off for us because I think we have
spoils. Yeah,
we definitely have one of the stronger teams. Now, technically, there's still a way that we could miss the playoffs, but
we're not going to miss the playoffs.
Stop it. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Just you can pull up the matchup. It's not going to happen.
We'd have to lose a matchup where we're favored by 40, and we'd have to be outscored by the other team by over 100.
Yeah, it's so improbable. So
we'd have to bench our whole team
roster here, right? There are some start-sit questions, especially as it applies to receiver if we weren't on such a heavy bye week as well, because we just would. Am I off base here?
No.
We got Zay and we got Nico on bye, which makes it easier for us. But going into next week, now we've got London, Neighbors, Puka, Nico, and Flowers available. Well,
right. So we have to bench one.
2 of them that are going to start, but as we start to look at our flex here, that's when things are going to start getting a little interesting here.
Right. Because next week it'll probably be between Zay Flowers and Drake London and Neighbors. Who do we bench? Now that Neighbors has been getting a monster target share all season, but
it hasn't translated the last 5 weeks. So
the production has not been there. So that's something to keep in mind with your teams that have Malik Neighbors, and maybe you are sort of stacked like this, or maybe you're in a shallow league. And so Neighbors isn't exactly just a plug and play guy right now. The Giants offense has struggled, obviously, pretty much all season. Early on, they were feeding Neighbors like crazy, and he was getting into the end zone. But as I heard on another show, they were going over some trades from earlier in the season when Neighbors was hot, right? And somebody in Dynasty traded Jamar Chase and a second for Malik Neighbors.
Oh,
okay. Sounds crazy now, but back in week 2,
no,
you remember?
No,
Malik Neighbors.
That's crazy in week 2. To me, that's crazy in week 2.
Yeah,
that's so early in the season
too.
to make a call like that and move pieces around. And was it a 25-second?
Probably. I mean, it was Dynasty, so they were looking at Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors is what, 3 years younger than Chase. So, I mean, I understand. Like, you can throw the 5 top, even 6 top receivers in Dynasty.
Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and DeVito, whatever his name is,
Tommy Cutlets
versus Joe Burrow or Jacob Browning.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, plus the body of work. That's just crazy to me.
Right.
That's crazy. Any point of the year, that's way too early. Way too early. Maybe right now, if you're in win now mode for the Dynasty, maybe that makes more sense to me. Where I'm like, okay, I can give up Neighbors for Chase, but like, what else is the Neighbors guy getting when they give up Chase, right?
Okay, well, you say that now, Matt. So would you
never entertain that?
No. Would you trade CD and a second for? Well, Neighbors is down now. Would you trade CD and a second for Amon-Ra?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there's still Goff is locked up in Detroit, and so is Amon-Ra now. I mean, both of them are on fresh contracts.
Be back there.
I don't think he's going anywhere, and you know what to expect from there. He's also the highest floor wide receiver one in my book. So that, in thinking about giving up a second, yeah, that's an easier choice for me.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah. I think Dak is just locked up there too well in Dallas, where nobody else is gonna take on that kind of contract. So
yeah, but how many times have we seen Cooper Rush in the last 2 years? Now I know this is the only year we've seen CD take the hit, but
yeah,
CD's also been pretty damn outspoken about how unhappy he is with everything. We also assume Dak Prescott's going to be a Cowboy next year. I can't assume that anymore.
I just think with the contract situation, there's no way that Dallas has a different QB1 going into 2025. So, that's just a little gem and plenty for us to talk about in the off season with the Cowboys. I'm sure there'll be plenty of Jerry Jones news and what they may or may not do with their running back room. I have a feeling that whoever they do draft at running back, because I think they will finally take one, Rico Dowdle's still going to be that gnat on the wall that everybody hates.
So gross.
So anyway, we're going to come back with another show later on, but for now, we want to thank you for joining. Don't forget to get your home run in pizza for tonight for the Packers Lions big matchup. Home run in is a favorite here in the Birdhouse. We can't get enough
I'm going
of it.
Cheese and pepperoni tonight.
I want the uncured pepperoni. Make sure it's uncured.
Just
give me the 4 meat
and the cheese. I'm going 2 pizzas tonight.
Give me the 4 meat, Matt. I'm good. All right. Be sure to send your start sit questions into the Birdhouse at buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show, and check out our rookie rankings on the Patreon at patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. Thank you for watching. Never stop working.